Howdy, folks. My name is James W. Falcon, and this is I guess this would actually be episode number 1. Yesterday's episode was the promotional. But in either case, I'm before you today to talk to you once more, give you a little bit more information about a report that I've just developed, and I launched it yesterday, and it's called the the Workers and Workplace Wellbeing Watch List. The Workers and Workplace Well-Being Watch List. And I'll explain why I named it that in just a second. Anyway, the situation, folks, is this. In 2021, something extraordinary happened. Something that left an indelible impression on history. History here in America and history of humanity abroad, like history for everyone. And that is what we refer to now as the Great Resignation, or what was also called the Big Quit. The Big Quit was indicative of millions of Americans that just left their jobs. They resigned. They quit. Some for other positions, greener pastures with other companies, and some they just simply bowed out of the workforce and they pursued their own things. They did what they feel was necessary at the time. They went to the places and they gave emphasis and they gave themselves to things that they felt were much better pursuits. In either case, the point I mentioned is that was the history. That is historical record. Hands down, there's no doubt about that. I remember that very clearly. I had just launched my coaching practice when the Big Quit happened, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second and how the two paths, my coaching practice launch and the Big Quit, how they overlapped. But in the meantime, I wanted to give you some more information regarding this report. So the Workers and Workplace Well-Being Watch List I developed because I feel like as a student of industrial organizational psychology, I'm not hearing and seeing enough about the ramifications, the things that are echoes, the wake of the Big Quit. I'm not seeing and hearing enough, at least in my part of the world, in terms of the things that I'm ingesting and seeing and reading. And even as a student, I don't see enough about the issues that were in play that caused people, or that at least gave people the license to quit. In other words, here's what I'm saying, folks, and I'm going to be very candid. I'm trying to approach this topic very scholarly, very academically, but I can't help but to add a little feeling and emotion into the mix of this, and I hope you don't mind. So my feeling and emotion is this. I think there was one report I saw that said something like 4 million people left their jobs. Folks, that's not 4 million people who were flighty. That's not 4 million people that woke up on the wrong side of the bed. That was 4 million Americans. And again, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in other countries all over the globe. These weren't people that were having a moment. They were, but it was much more than just a moment. It was deeper. And I think it's worth exploring what the depth of those issues were. And then to take a look at, well, if they had the issues they had then, where is the workforce with regard to those issues today? So I created this report to examine just that piece of information, just those points. What were the issues in the Big Quit? And how are we doing in America and abroad regarding managing, handling, addressing those very same issues at present? Because if we don't address them, if we don't deal with them, I feel like it's not only a missed opportunity, but it could be something that could happen again. And we've seen cycles of things that don't get addressed historically, especially in America. So I think it's worth examining, and I think it's worth coming up with a game plan to understand the why the what, and then to figure out the how we're going to deal with those issues if they're still lingering. So that's what the workers and workplace well-being watch list is all about. It's the workers, because in my years, in my career of service and the leadership roles that I've played and been in, I've always tried to put, especially in the last half of my career, I've made a point to say to my teams and to the people that I reported to, my quote-unquote superiors, I will always prize people ahead of machines and processes. That's been my philosophy. And thankfully, the people, the leaders that I have worked under have appreciated that philosophy and that approach to a certain degree. It has had its limitations, its challenges, and I've had to do some fighting in there and make the case. But I think overall, the managers and the supervisors, the directors, the VPs, and all of the other people that I've worked under have appreciated my people-centered approach to operations and to whatever it was I was doing. And I still hold true to that today, especially and particularly as a professional who is rounding out some things to do more coaching, executive coaching, and to also be in a position to do some consulting. So even and especially now at this stage and phase of my life, I am extraordinarily people-centered. And when I say people, I'm talking about employees. Whoever it is I'm responsible for and to, I'm going to put their needs first. And actually what I'm going to do is to try to help them to understand how their needs can fit snugly into the operations needs so that we have one big happy formula that works both for the person and the organization. That's another philosophy and approach for another day. So going back to the report, I really feel like it's worth examining. So for the workers, and also examining what the issues were and are with regard to your workplace. And when I'm saying workplace, I don't just mean your job. I mean your physical office space, factory space, wherever you're working, whatever the room, the places are that you are working in. I'm talking about those structures. And I'll get to that in just a second as to why that's important today. Because it is of utmost importance that we examine the workplace proper, the locations, the buildings, the rooms, the factories, the places where we are doing business, because that's going to change in a cataclysmic way very soon. It's already started. As we get deeper and deeper into what's called 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution. And again, that'll definitely have to be something we get more in detail about as this goes along. So I had only intended to push the report and to just do the promotional yesterday. But as I thought to myself last night and as I was reviewing the video of yesterday, let's do a few segments on this to get you going so you'll understand the what, the why, and the how of this report. Because I want this to be information that everybody in any level of an organization or a company can use. So whether you are on the front lines, in the middle there, if you're on the executive and the leadership level in the C-suite, and every point in between, this is information, what I call news, that I feel we can all use. So I want to empower you with facts and then with some possibilities as to what you can do when you get the facts, then what happens then. So we want to make all of this work together for everybody who's working's benefit. So it's the workers and workplace well-being. And that's the key. Well-being. Time and time again, when you read this report, and this report was just drawn from information from another set of reports that I'll tell you about in just a second as well. Well-being is the thing that's coming up more and more now as it relates to the Great Resignation and just in general. Since the pandemic, the workplace has been saturated. People working, organizations are concerned now more than ever. The workers are concerned now more than ever about their well-being. Not just the organization's well-being, not just how healthy the organization is. That's always going to be a point and an emphasis for the organization leaders. But I'm talking about the workers, the employees of these organizations, those people, the common everyday folks that make the engines go. These people have in the front of their minds concerns today about their well-being, and you'll see that come up time and time again. And that, my listening and viewing friend, is where such extraordinary opportunity exists for all of us. And that's why this report emphasizes well-being, the state and condition of the employee, whoever he or she is, whatever role and position they hold, in whatever their functionality may be in a respective organization. We are focusing on their well-being. Whether you're in the C-suite, front lines, middle management, brand new management, maybe you're being groomed for a leadership role, your well-being is important, even more so. And I'm going to share with you why well-being is especially important for leaders, for the managers and supervisors, the immediate leadership team and tier of organization. There is struggle and challenge that's present. And those things are not what was existing back during the Great Resignation. These are some new developments that are pigeon-toeing our managers and supervisors on the front lines, and we need to get them some help. So I want to make sure that this report can provide an inroad to those people, those leaders, those extraordinarily valuable leaders and employees of organizations to be able to get the help they need. But first, I feel like we need to first ring the bell and sound the alarm to help people understand that something is afoot, so to speak. There is something happening somewhere, and we need to call some attention to it and send the teams in to provide support, rescuing, help, and whatever it needs to happen to get them into the healthiest place, mindset, well-being wise, that they can possibly be in. Make sense? Okay. So what I want to do in this segment, which is episode 1, yesterday was a promotional. I'm going to do maybe 2 or 3 of these total. Maybe we might do an ongoing series. Who knows? But the point is that this is another iteration. And what I want to do is just do a quick review of yesterday, and particularly not of all the information, but a quick review of the makeup and the reasons why this report exists. So I want to talk about what fueled me to develop this report, because that piece, those pieces are just as important as the information in the report itself. I want to talk a little bit about that. Then I'm going to give you some points to consider for today that will stand on their own. And then I want to be able to set you up so that you are well positioned for the next segment, because there's something I want to talk to you about for the next segment that is very, very important. Because what I want to do is to create a hunger in you to want to know more about this information, because it pertains to your job, your position today. It pertains to your organization. So once again, if you are a business owner, if you are an organizational leader, if you are a leader on any level, C-suite, when I say C-suite, I mean the executive team, the CEOs, CAOs, CIOs, that group, middle management, frontline management, managers, supervisors, team leads, and everybody else, as well as the respective leaders in certain departments. If you are in human resources, please, please, please lend me your ears. This information will be transformative, I promise. Not just for you, but for the people around you, for your team, your department, your immediate and your the folks under you, the people above you and the people under you. It's going to be helpful for everyone. But we want to get the juices flowing. We want to get this information percolating so that you can further chew on it when you have these conversations with friends and family and your peers and folks at work. This would be great information, managers, directors, team leads, supervisors. This is great information to fuel team meetings and one-on-one developmental discussions. This is great information to start the day off with an email that makes the point of highlighting one of these points in this report. This is great information, period. And I hope you see it that way. And I want you to be able to not only see it that way, but to use the information in that manner to your advantage and to the advantage of the people around you. This is great conversation to have at dinner. It's great conversation to have with friends when you go out after work for drinks. This is great conversation to have on the weekends. It's great things to consider. And if you are in a helping profession, counseling, coaching, consultant, great information to have and to play off of as you bring support and balance and alignment to your clients, patients, etc. So just a few things to think about. But I think it's important that I ring the bell to help you understand how this report was put together. So I'm using multiple sources, but two major sources, and that's ADP. The ADP company has been developing reports and they've been analyzing data for years. So they have what's called the ADP Research Center. And if you don't know, ADP is the company that handles payroll and payroll systems for thousands of people globally. These reports are drawn from data that they have sifted through and done some things with, analyzing from about 36,000 employees globally. So when I speak about ADP, I'm talking about that company in that context. And in addition to that, along with the ADP report, there's also what's called the National Employment Report, which you know very well about, and I mentioned this yesterday. The NER, as it's called. You might hear me slip up and say the NER. But the NER report is also, or both of these reports are very much a part of the American fabric of business. These are the reports that the feds base their rates off of. That's how ingrained we as Americans have become and impacted by the data and the information in these particular reports. So they're very much a part of the American workforce fabric. It's very much a part of the American political arena. As I mentioned yesterday, politicians use this kind of data to springboard off of when they want to run for office and when they've been in office for them to stay in office. Because you have things like, so back in March, the report said that there were about 62,000 jobs added specifically in the health field. And then there are some more details regarding. So you get that kind of information from these reports. And so I'm not going to be looking at the job adding or declining aspect. I'm going to go deeper. And I want to also say this. I have never been a person on social media to throw shade at anyone else's work. So you won't hear me bashing or throwing shade on these reports. That's not what I'm trying to do here. What I want to do is to go a little deeper than what we're used to getting, seeing, and hearing from these reports. So I'm not going to talk about the number of jobs added unless I feel like it conveys a point that I want to get across. What I want to talk about is the sentiment, the mindset, the well-being of employees globally, and especially here in the United States. So that's what this is all about. So it's important for you to know that what feeds this work is the NER or the NER. And now that I say that, I'm going to keep saying that just so I can make myself laugh. Anyway, that's how silly I can be sometimes. So the NER report and the ADP report are what fuels this report. So that's how I've got the data that I have to analyze that I call the Workers and Workplace Wellbeing Watch List. Okay, I hope that this becomes such regular information for you that you tune in. Anything that I post, by the way, the actual report is my report, the W&WWW is what I call it for short, is going to be posted on my website, Global Pathways Coaching Journal, which is the journal, the blog of my coaching practice, A New Horizon Coaching and Consulting. All of those things are projects of mine under my overarching umbrella that I call Encouragement is Key. Each of these projects, the coaching practice, A New Horizon, this report, and the blog where you will find this report, which is globalpathwayscoachingjournal.org. All of those are part of my incredibly unique helps network that is encouragement-based and internet supported. It's called Encouragement is Key. So there are so many different aspects of that umbrella, and this is just a few of those. So go out regularly to Global Pathways. There are about 150, if not 200 blogs that are active and ready for you to read. They're anywhere from a minute to 7-8 minutes. I think this report is an 8.5-minute read. So they're all in blog form, and you're welcome to share, to like, to subscribe. Please subscribe to Global Pathways. And then if you want more support, more information, if you want to be able to apply this information firsthand for yourself, your organization, your team, your leader, whoever may be a part of your world, and you want to do that from a coaching and consulting perspective, I'll be happy to help you because I am equipped to do that work as well. So the overarching theme of all of this, my listening and viewing friend, is that I want to help you. I want to empower you with information. So let me move speedily forward. So those are the pieces that I wanted to give you from yesterday that give you some insight as to what fuels and what makes up this report. The last thing is as I mentioned, I am an industrial organizational psychology PhD student. I only say that for this point. In the course of my studies, I ran across a science journal article because in the science world, everything floats by journal publications. All theory, all approaches, the researchers will publish an article and it goes into a established journal, and you can research and pull those journal articles and read through them as you desire. In most cases, the actual journal publications can be somewhat expensive. I do my research through my school's library. I also use Google Scholar, just so you know, as a resource that you're welcome to use. It's free. Any and everybody can tap in. So if you want more information, for example, on the Great Resignation, just type that into Google Scholar and pick whatever the articles are. Choose one and just read through it yourself, and you'll be able to see the exact same information that I'm giving and wanting to convey is there. Apart from that, This journal article that I read in the course of my homework assignments said that the field of industrial organizational psychology was immensely helpful. But they also said the downside was that the facts, the findings, and the help that IO, industrial organizational psychology, can provide is usually locked away in certain places reserved for certain people. And the journal article author said that the best thing to do to overcome that was that industrial organizational psychology principles, practice and theory, should be somewhere where people reside and spend time normally. Basically it said that social media needs to be more used and occupied by the principles of industrial organizational psychology. And I can't help but to agree with that, because as I look around over the years, I see very few IO principles just in everyday context. So I said to myself, I have a platform. I have a social media-based platform, an internet platform. And I said, well, let me see how I could use my platform to help to fuel this thing about getting the principles and the practice of industrial organizational psychology out to the general public. And here I am. So that's where this whole thing is coming from. I told you the reports that I've drawn from, what's fueling me as a student to be able to make a big impact or to be able to help whoever wants to listen. That's the goal here. I'm not trying to be famous. I'm certainly not trying to make a boatload of money, though if either of those two things come my way, I will happily open the doors and welcome them. But the whole point of this is to empower you, the listener, with practical information and hopefully with some science-backed information for you to make the best decisions possible to help navigate your reality today and hopefully your career going forward. But I want to make these things available and known because, again, I don't think enough emphasis has been given to the Great Resignation. It impacted us in such a way we probably don't realize, because we were busy in the throes of a global pandemic, and there were several other underlining issues happening along with that. So we were very preoccupied, and a pandemic inside of a pandemic, one of the most monumental movements in the workplace in human history took place. So we've got two things. We got something inside of another thing, and it stands to reason that we are a little slow in processing either one of those, because let's be honest, we are all still recovering. We're recovering from whatever personal impact the pandemic has had on us, the virus itself. I mean, I had several friends that I lost, unfortunately, some family members, a mentor that I just absolutely adored, lost to COVID. And I'm sure you had similar losses and impact issues as a result of the pandemic. So we've been busy. So this is not shade thrown on anybody in any direction for any reason. This is just me saying, hey, let's go back and take a look at that now that we have a little bit more room and time to breathe, right? So that's what I wanted to do as a student. And I wanted to share with you those findings. So let me be quick with a few pieces, and I just want to leave you with this. So one of the things that was important about the Great Resignation is that it hasn't, so people, I'm sorry, I got too excited there. It hasn't gone away. It's not over. The bulk of people leaving, yes, that's stopped or slowed down substantially. But there's still movement in the workplace, and that's a point that I think everybody needs to know. The Great Resignation proper is done, but there are some lingering effects that we're all still dealing with, and those lingering effects are as such. So the Great Resignation has morphed from a Great Resignation into what's being called the great stay. The great stay. So people aren't leaving now. They're deciding, they're opting to stay in their jobs, in their positions with their companies and corporations and factories and all. And they're very disenchanted about the present set of circumstances. That's important, because if you are one of those employees where you just can't get excited about your work anymore, I understand, my listening and viewing friend, it's not your fault. We are all, I don't want to say victims, but I caught myself there. We're all kind of at the whim of a bigger system and a wheel that's been turning quite quickly. And it's important that you know that. There's not anything wrong with you per se. With us individually, we're in a system that has been impacted. You ever been in a car? I was in a car recently, and the driver, who is a very well equipped driver, this driver hit a pothole. And then the wheel on the one side started wobbling. And so we're in this wobbly car. That's kind of the analogy. You as a worker, you're in a wobbly vehicle. It's not your fault. It's not your immediate supervisor's fault. It's the state of being. It's where we are right now. We're in a vehicle with a wobbly wheel, and we need to understand that that wheel is wobbling and why, so that we at some point in this journey can pull a car over and address the wobbly wheel and potentially save the car from having alignment. Ooh, I didn't even intend for that to happen. Let me say that again. So at some point, we need to pull that wobbly wheel car over, address the wobbly wheel, maybe change it, gas it, whatever we need to do. We need to get it fixed, get the spare out and change it. And we need to do that because if we don't, that wobbly wheel will create alignment issues for the car, which could further put it at risk of being used. And that's exactly, I think, a fitting analogy of what's happening in the modern work world. And here's why I say that. And I want to be quick and kind of wrap this up. So what's happening is people are staying, but they're disengaged. They're disengaged because they're concerned about trust, they're concerned about meaning, and they're concerned about their company's responsibility for their well-being. Well-being is the theme here. Again, like I used the analogy of the two people in the car, or the multiple people in a car with a wobbly wheel. Those passengers and that driver's well-being is at stake in that wobbly wheel situation. It's the same situation with all of us in today's modern workplace. The wheel is wobbling. It needs to be addressed. Now, let me be really sensitive here. For those of us who have not had fond things to say about our immediate supervisors and managers, I want to ask you to just take a breath. Supervisors, the front line folks, immediate supervisors, managers, team leads, and so forth, they are taking the bulk of what is happening with this wobbly wheel. Because the workplace is so nowadays supercharged with continuous non-stop change by external pressures from the marketplace and from internal pressures within the organization and the company that these people are working for. We're all caught, as my mother used to say, betwixt and between, right? It's just what it is. And we've been there since the pandemic and will probably continue to be there just a little while on. But there is hope. And I want to share with you both sides of that incredible coin. So managers and supervisors are challenged because they too are stressed. They are stressed and they are stretched. Many managers and supervisors, according to these reports, are saying that they're really not doing well-being issues, because they're so torn so betwixt and between that they can't lead their teams like they really want to. They feel somewhat disconnected because they're trapped in what I've always called management land. They're trapped in the administrative responsibilities of their positions. And I will tell you this as a person that's been a manager, a supervisor, a team lead, and a director. I will tell you that is indicative of that position. I think anybody that's ever been in a managerial or supervisory role, directorship even, you will always find that you are always called into meetings. You're sometimes trapped jockeying emails. You are trapped in places and situations and exchanges because your duties and responsibilities are to the greater organization. So you probably will never get the time you really want with your team. And if you are a person that would prefer to be one-on-one with your team members, sitting by your team members' desks, shadowing them, encouraging them, empowering them, but you don't get that time, then guess what? I hate to tell you, but that's indicative of the role. Now, the solution or an approach that you can use, so the problem stated by the report. I have that in my report because ADP and NER had it in theirs. So here's the challenge. And I am always presented with this challenge as a coach, no matter what I'm coaching. Eventually this comes up, but especially and particularly when I do business and career coaching. It's understanding the difference understanding the difference and the balance between managerial responsibilities, being a manager and being a leader. A manager works to keep the balance of things administratively. They make sure systems stay in place. They make sure attendance is monitored. They make sure productivity happens. They make sure that the ship is continuing to go in the direction that it needs to. They make sure that all the things that are needed for the journey employees have. And that is a tall order. Again, having been a manager, a supervisor, a team lead, I can tell you that is a never-ending battle. And depending on your industry and the time of the year, the season you're in, it could be an even taller challenge. Managing versus leading. Leading is about people. Managing is about processes. So what you have to do, my listening dear friend, manager, supervisor, team lead, director, whoever you are, you have to find the balance between what and when and how to manage, take care of the work, the systems, the processes versus leading, which is the connection you need to have, maintain, and sustain with your employees, with your team. You can't shirk one for the other. You have to find that balance. And that, my listening and viewing friend, is going to be a forever challenge. So I totally side with you. I'm incredibly sympathetic to your needs in that respect. If you have a manager or a supervisor that you seem like you only see whir past you on roller skates, you can't get in to see him or her, they don't say they have time for you on their day, on their schedule, they can't fit you in, they come in kind of holding their heads down and they leave beat and tired as they can be and they barely say anything to you, please don't be too hard on them. They're struggling like you're struggling. They have different types of challenges, but nonetheless, their challenges and their struggles are real. At the same time, I will say to you, supervisors, team leads, managers, directors, and whatever other leadership roles you have, understand this, that your employees are not machines. Let me say that again. Your employees are not machines. I can take this point and talk for hours from the standpoint of being a student of industrial organizational psychology, because the history of this science has sought to address this very issue. and how the evolution of the workplace mindset has had to change. Because there was a point in time, and I'll talk about this later in another episode of the report, in another episode of these segments, there was a thing called Taylorism that used to dominate the workplace in the early 1900s. And guess what? Just like we're examining the Great Resignation, we are still living in the after effects of Taylorism. Taylorism was an attempt to make things, especially in factories, with factory workers, much more efficient. And it did. The numbers shot through the roof in terms of the output that Taylorism was able to spark in terms of overall productivity. But in exchange for extraordinary productivity increase, what happened was it put so much pressure on employees that a whole science of research started to develop about workplace motivation, because workers were bogged down, they were stressed, because workers' well-being were not being considered. Human beings were being treated like output machines, and you can imagine what that did to people. It made people depressed. It adversely affected the worker. And I don't know that we've really come around that corner. So I don't know if we've really gotten away from Tayloristic principles. It still exists in many respects in workspaces, workplaces, which is why this report is focusing, centralizing on workplace, what? Well-being, worker and workplace, the physical location, well-being. We need to consider both. There is a well-being, there's a health and maintenance, a balance that the worker needs to have and the actual physical environment needs to be able to support. And those things together will create a happier, healthier employee and improved productivity. But these are things that have to be considered. They're really issues of work organizational culture, which is something we'll get into much, much later on. But I wanted to give you that much at least. So here's what you can do, worker, and whatever your level is, frontline, middle, C-suite and above. Whatever your role is, you, the worker in a company, I don't care what your titles are, here's what you can do. You, my listening and viewing friend, can reclaim your agency. James, what are you talking about? What's reclaiming? Your agency is your commitment to yourself, to have a voice and to be able to make decisions out of your own free will. So it's your presence and the power that your presence has. Speak up for yourself. Talk to your supervisors. Talk to your team leads. Talk to the immediate leaders that you report to. Let them know when, if, and why you're having challenges. I'm not talking about waste their time belly aching. I'm not talking about, but I'm saying have regular conversations about your health and well-being. Let your bosses know when you're not feeling the work. Let your bosses know when you are overwhelmed. Let your bosses know if anything comes up at home that you feel is going to interfere with your focus and doing the job that you're being paid to do. Mention those things to your supervisors. That's the agency that I'm saying needs to be reclaimed, okay? Reclaim, that goes for everybody on the organizational org chart. Whoever you are, whatever role you're playing, reclaim your agency. Don't wait for something to change on its own. Be a change agent, because who knows? Your manager, I just told you, your manager is so bogged down trying to keep the ship afloat that they're probably not even tuned in to the fact that their workers are struggling, that their workers have checked out. They probably just assume, and this is a point I want to close this segment on because I've taken quite a bit of time today. I appreciate you guys giving me this time. We're 44 minutes in. Let me wrap this up in just a few more minutes, I promise. Managers and supervisors understand that your role is key to the organization. You are tasked with building organizational culture. Your contributions, managers, supervisors, team leads, your contributions create organizational culture. The things you give your attention to, the behavior you reward is the culture you're building. And I'm going to leave that right there. So managers and supervisors, check in more with your workers. When you come in during the course of the day, when you come in first in the morning, walk around, say good morning to your employees. Shake hands, high five. Hey, I appreciate what you did yesterday. Thank you so much. I know this isn't easy, but we're going to do this again. When the work day is over, on your way out the door, high five, handshake, and salute your employees. Hey, everybody, thank you so much today. We were able to pull off a great day. Thank you. We appreciate your hard work. I know we didn't get to where we wanted to be. You may be concerned about your individual performance. Don't be concerned. I'm going to be talking to you going forward, giving you your reviews, your one-on-ones, whatever. Do something to re-engage with your work. Now, that's me talking. That's James Falcon, coach. That's James Falcon, the very sensitive leader. I was this person because I saw that from my people that I reported to. I saw how that works. I saw what a healthy workplace looks like when the bosses are intimately connected to their employees. I know what that looks like. I know what the balance is in a healthy respect between managing and leading. I was mentored by some extraordinary human beings, some extraordinary professors that showed me how to navigate this. So this is me talking, not my report. Connect with your workers. Don't have times and seasons where you don't know where they are mentally, physically, and emotionally. Make sure you know what your workers are thinking and make sure you understand their stress level. Again, this is purely James W. Falcon talking. But the report talks about this as well, talking about I'm saying this in addition to reclaiming your agency, having a voice, and making your presence have an impact. The other half of that is that's to all employees in whatever role you're in. But to managers, supervisors, and team leads, the frontline leaders, I'm saying stay in step with your workers. Okay? Chew on those things. The next episode, I'm going to talk to you about a few things. The report is going to have a theory that's going to be the centerpiece for the particular edition of the report. And each one of the centerpieces is going to be an industrial organizational psychology theory. I'm going to share with you the theory principles and what and how the theory matters to you in your everyday working. Next edition, we're going to cover McClelland's theory of needs. You're going to appreciate this. It's going to make a lot of sense. It's more than just head knowledge. McClelland's theory of needs. It's a very interesting theory that was done not very long ago. And it has incredible bearing, I think, on the modern employee and the modern workplace, managers, supervisors, and all that we know as work today. So look forward to that. I look forward to presenting that. In the meantime, if you have any questions, comments, email me. You can email me use this email, use A New Horizon CNC 2026. A New Horizon C and the letter C and C 2026 at gmail.com. That's the email address, my email address for my coaching practice. If you have any concerns, email me there. If you would like for me to come and to do something with your teams, well, I'm virtual. If you would like for me to connect with you and your teams virtually, I will be more than happy to do something. I live for this, as you can probably hear. Not only am I a student, but I am an aspiring practitioner of all of these things as I coach and in position to do some consulting. So I can't wait to put all that I know how to do to work for you. Call me directly. Text me 443-707-6706. My practice is up and running every day, 7 days a week, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Always working because I'm a student. I'm always studying. I'm always learning. So in the midst of the studying, I do coaching and coaching related things. I don't really take on new clients as much as I used to but I'm always there to give some guidance. And I've developed some approaches where if I can't do a full-blown coaching for you, you'll get the best of me in the ways that I know how to share to get you to where you need to be. Let's connect. Do this for yourself. I've given you too much information for you to sit, flounder, and just wring your hands. I don't want you to do that. I don't care who you are. Any role, position that you have on an org chart is important. It's vital. I'm here to remind you of that, and I want to keep telling you about that. Your role is key. And I hope and I wish and pray for you the very best in your present position with your current company and for you and your career. So this has been James W. Falcon with another episode and more information of the Workers and Workplace Wellbeing Watch List, and I hope we can connect soon. Look for another episode, which will be episode 2, that I'll be working and recording that you can look for quite soon. Until then, peace and power. Take care. Bye-bye.